sponsored faculty forum featuring Howard Bunsis of Eastern Michigan University and the AAUP. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Ann Fernald. I'm currently serving as the president of the Faculty Senate here at Fordham, and it is our great pleasure as the Faculty Senate to welcome you here. I'm going to talk for maybe 5 minutes about kind of why we've called this forum and where we are. I may call on Ann Clark, who's chair of the Salary and Benefits Committee, to fill in some of the details, but this is going to be a very brief introduction because what I want to do is give our time to Howard Bunsis and let him share with you his analysis of Fordham financials. So as you know, last year we did not come to a negotiated agreement on our salary, and instead the board, in collusion with the administration, imposed a salary on us in violation of our statute. We're working, moving forward on kind of, I would say, the way I'm thinking of it is we're working on 3 tracks moving forward, right? One of those tracks is working collectively to keep you all informed and acting to show our protest of this action and to demand that the administration and the board revert to the adherence to the statutes that is so important to shared governance and faculty governance at this university, right? So there's kind of information and working together piece of it. The second piece of it has to do with lodging formal protests, and we've done that through grievances, 4 grievances which have been filed with the Senate Hearing Committee. Those grievances are going to work their way through the system. That is the first step towards seeing if we want to take possible further actions, maybe filing a grievance with the AAUP, maybe eventually filing a lawsuit. But we're trying to do it in a step-by-step, gradual, procedural way, and we'll see at each step whether further action is warranted or whether if we have a remedy, then maybe perhaps no further action will be warranted. But we need to exhaust internal remedies before we turn to external remedies. So that's the rationale behind the grievance. And then we also met yesterday for the first time with the administration to work toward the salary agreement for this coming year. And we have a series of meetings every 2 weeks scheduled with the administration, so those talks have begun. We have rehired our attorney, Beth Margolis, who's a labor lawyer, and she is sitting in with us and helping us and advising us in those talks. So we are continuing to talk. We are also pushing back, and I think those are the 2 directions we're going, but in 3 strands. Is there anything else that we should highlight at this moment?
Well, maybe just to mention that the administration has also added an external lawyer as well.
They did. They when we announced that we were bringing our lawyer, they hired a lawyer. They made the charming move of hiring the man who represented the administration at Long Island University. It's not maybe the most charming or friendly choice that they made. So that gives you a little sense of the lay of the land. We're encouraging everyone to join the AAUP. We're asking people as they can to donate to the Senate Legal Fund. We're going to have our lawyer at those meetings. You have cards on your chairs that give you information about how to do that. You'll get an email blast from me encouraging you to do that. Given that our attorney will be with us in bi-weekly meetings and we'll be consulting with her in between, those legal fees are going to rise. And so any help from you in terms of supporting our labor lawyer, she's really awesome and smart and fair and tough. She's terrific. And but we need to keep her on the payroll. So your donations will be happily accepted. And with that, I'm going to turn to introducing our wonderful guest. We're so lucky and happy to have Howard Bunsis here with us today. As I said before, he's a professor at Eastern Michigan University and also he's the chair of the AAUP Collective Bargaining Congress. Howard got his bachelor's degree at Wharton and his JD from Fordham University. He has an MBA from Chicago and also a PhD in accounting from Chicago. He has decades of bargaining experience, and he is one of the, if not the preeminent national analyst of university budgets nationwide. He has served as treasurer of the AAUP, treasurer of the Collective Bargaining Congress, and the president of the Eastern Michigan AAUP chapter. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the podium over to Howard. So, thank you.
Appreciate being here. A couple of things, if I may start. I am a native New Yorker. I was born in Brooklyn, grew up on Long Island, and a huge Met fan. And live and die with that team. And last night was living, the night before I died. That's the way it goes with the Mets. The games we got left 3 and 6, 9 games left. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, the collective bargaining Congress, there's about 80 unions that the AAUP is affiliated with nationally, and I'm the chair and helping oversee those. And obviously, there's not a union here at Fordham, but as we'll talk about throughout the time, I think the Fordham AAUP chapter is the way that faculty can act like a union, even if there are legal constraints from them unionizing. And in addition, as the adjuncts and graduate students here move towards unionization, the faculty can do everything they can to support those moves. It's my belief as a union leader that everyone who wants collective representation should have it. If you want that voice, you should have it. Now the law is going to stop us in certain respects, but I think the graduate students and the adjuncts here have a very good case to make, and we've had some favorable rulings, and hopefully those will continue. Let me say one other thing about Beth Margos, who I know very well. I've worked with Beth at, we have an AAUP union at Ohscr and at Delphi and New York Institute of Technology. Beth is the lawyer for all of those places, and those are our AAUP unions. I have been at the table with Beth, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes with Beth, and she's an excellent legal lawyer, exactly what Dan said. And I hope that, I'm just thrilled to hear that you guys are working with Beth, and hopefully that will continue. So in terms of this presentation, as soon as I'm done and I clean up any mistakes, I plead guilty to any mistakes in here of mine. This is yours to keep. I will send this to Andrew and Ann, and you guys can do what you like with it. Videotaping it is fine, but this presentation is yours. And I think I can say this, I'm bragging. No one's paying me to be here. I do this because I believe in the cause, and I believe in what we all stand for, and standing up for what's right. So that's why I'm here. I also do like coming back to New York, I'll admit that. As a native New Yorker, it's great to, always great to be back. And I did not know that the Mets were home this week.
It was in the dates that we offered.
Yeah, it was in the dates that we offered. But there, some of the hotels here don't even have SNY because there's this dispute between the cable companies and is it any different than the administration here? I mean, it's always, how is it possible that you can't watch Yankees? At some places you can't watch. Is that still true, I assume?
Well, the Yankees are back on.
Yankees, but the Mets not so much? Don't get us. All right, so, wrong answer. Yo.
Even if that computer's back on.
You might have to move closer.
No,
It's that way that it should be.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. There we go.
Now let's see if this works. I think I have to aim
Yes.
pointer. Yeah. Okay. So here are the goals. Look at them. Do they have money? Where's it coming from? And where's it going? And you can stop me anytime. I'm a teacher just like most of you, many of you, so we know what that's like. So stop me, yell at me, raise your hand, whatever you got to do. So we start by looking at the balance sheet. And Fordham's got a lot of money. Doesn't mean it's all free. You can see over time assets and things they have. We'll break down. We'll show you what's in them. So the way it works is the blue is equal to the sum of these two. The liabilities are things they owe, and these are the difference, and some of these are reserves and some are not. And we're going to break that down. So I think in general the trend is good, bigger is better, and it's growing. So that's about what we can say. And here are the assets. And you can see there's investments and buildings, capital assets and buildings. There's been a building boom on these 3 campuses, I believe it's fair to say. Fordham claims there are 3 campuses. The people at Lincoln Center, if you could, I used to, when I went to school there, I went to law school in the 19-somethings, as we'll say. It is not close to, I've seen the building now. It's not the same building, first of all. When I went to school there, it was, I'll just say pedestrian. Most people were not even down there. It was a very different building. And I think sparkling is the word I'd use to describe it. Is that fair? Is that a fair description of that building? Yeah. So certainly that happened. And so over the last 7 years, which we got data. By the way, so much of my data comes from audited financial statements. Let me say one thing about the word budget and what people think the word budget is. A budget is a plan. It says this is what we're going to bring in and this is what we're going to spend. These tell us, the audited statements tell us what actually happened. And universities, when they talk about their financial situations, talk about budgets, those of us who analyze the truth talk about the audited statements. And so, the other thing, the audited statements I only have through 15, well that's fair enough. It's a June 30th fiscal year. Alright, that must be them. They need to mute. It's like the dog barking when you're on a conference call. So, the year ends June 30th, 16. The board here is meeting next week, from what I understand, and at that meeting they will be presenting to themselves the 2016 audited statements. You should get those. And to me, it's like a kid in a candy store getting new ones. I love getting new ones, especially since I've lived with these statements now for the last couple of weeks. I can't wait to see what's going on, what will happen in 16. I think I know what happened, I can predict, and I'll talk about those predictions in a bit, but I would like to see what they actually have. I'd like to see what they actually have. So you can see the investment portfolio has grown quite a bit, but there's been a tremendous growth in buildings, more than a doubling of buildings over the last 7 years. And good, bad, it's up to you to decide. Okay, a lot of numbers here. Let me say this, I'm an accounting professor, so deal with that. Yes, I am one of the few union presidents who's an accounting professor in the country. But still, there's a lot of numbers here. I don't put this on here to have your eyes glaze over. Just a couple, what I'm showing you here is the portfolio went from $450 to $720 million. That's the investment portfolio. This is how their returns are doing. Dividends and interest. These are the expenses they pay those investment advisors. You can see they're going from $1 million to $2 million to $3 million to $4 million to $5 million. And here are some returns. Now, graphs are always better. So these are the portfolios. This is where is Fordham investing the $720 million? There's different baskets of things, and I've collapsed them into 3 categories. Cash and government securities being the smallest, then stocks and bonds, and then risky securities. What are they? Non-public equity funds, hedge funds, private equity funds. I'm not saying it's Bernie Madoff, and you know how us Met fans feel about Bernie Madoff and the Wopogs. Okay, I'm just going to get sick for a second. I said it out loud. But look what's happened. Look what they've done. Over time, they've moved more and more of the portfolio into these riskiest investments. Is that bad on its face? I don't know. Let's see how they've done. So this is the annual return of Fordham's investments versus the Standard & Poor's 500, which is just the stock market as a whole. So let's go year by year. In 8 and 9, the stock market got hammered. Fordham did less worse. Every year since, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, the S&P 500 has beat Fordham's investments every single year for the last 6 years. Yes?
So just to stop for a second, so had we done an index fund and paid much less in advising fees?
How much would they have?
Yeah, we'd be doing a lot better.
Yeah, probably about $10 million, $20 million.
Wow.
This is going back a couple of slides, but could you talk a little bit about the other assets? You know, what's in them? Because they actually went down, and I'm curious.
The other assets are mostly receivables,
I see.
contributions receivable, receivables from student tuition, that kind of thing. And, you know, the thing is, when you look at, yes, they went down, but always keep in mind where they are in the, you know, numbers are funny things. Yes, they went down, but, you know, look at the dollar change, 17 million versus 15 million versus a increase here and here of more significant. So that's why I'm focusing on, you know, the big things. But here you can see the annual return, 2.5% a year. 2.5% a year on a $700 million portfolio, you could do the math. That's a lot of money. And so why, I mean, and this, the worsening performance has corresponded with an increase in investments that are riskier, which has corresponded with an increase in expenses to investment advisors. I'll just leave it at that. I think that speaks for itself. So the lesson is this. If someone asked me if I was going to manage the $700 million portfolio, I would leave it in an index fund and go to Met Games. I'm not even worried. And Met Games and Ranger Games are other games I go to. But that's it. There's nothing, over the long term, it just doesn't work. And they're paying a lot of money to make it not work. Yes?
Do you have any comparable numbers of successful universities?
That's a good question. Let me say this. And I think Ann said it best earlier. Unfortunately, I've been in a lot. Recently, I was at Ohscr in Delphi within the last 6 months. Both of those places, these graphs are almost identical. They're almost identical at Ohscr and Delphi, where more and more of the portfolio is in risky securities, performance worse and worse. They're all talking to the same ones. Now, as Ann said, it doesn't make it right. It's just the way, what you do about it is for you to decide correctly. I'm showing you what it is. They are not managing this the way they should be. That's the bottom line. And I don't care who you are. I mean, I know you guys, I know this is New York, but isn't $700 million a lot of money? Even to me, isn't that a lot? To me, that's a lot of money. You know, obviously to some people, it's couch cushion money, but to me, $700 million raises above the level of couch cushion money. So, I think, so, but your question is right on target. So when they, you know, the gentleman in the back, when they point to how their returns are doing versus other endowments, they see very similar results. But again, they're all doing it wrong. They're all doing this wrong. They're paying investment advisors that they shouldn't be paying. They should leave it in index funds and just let it roll. And just let it be. I don't know if anyone here teaches finance or economics, but that's what we learned years ago. And it still works today. It's still the way to go. Yes?
It looks like in 2008 and 2009, we were safer on the downside. So is that maybe why they're paying an investment advisor?
I don't know. I think you got something to say this morning about that.
They cashed out a lot of their investments in 2008.
They left it in cash and took it out of the market. But your point is still, I do think they're living off of that somewhat. I mean, this is significant, right? I mean, they did, everyone else, you know, the market's getting killed, we were better. But now, look, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, this is 6 years. That's long enough to realize. And again, when this is happening. So, to me, this red should be 0. I still believe that red should be 0. That's what that red should be. There's no reason, it doesn't get you anything. I don't think it gets you anything. And I'm not going to accuse anyone of I'm sure I've looked at all the board members. Some of them miraculously are in the financial services industry. But I'm not saying they're the ones that are driving this, because, like, gentlemen, every university does this. With you know, a size like Fordham, they all do this. Again, I'm sorry to keep pointing this out, it doesn't make it right. It's just because I see it everywhere doesn't mean, oh, we're just going to accept this the way it is. No, the reason these young men are fighting to unionize is because they want to change things. They want to stand up and change things. That's what we're, you know. So hopefully they'll wake up one of these days. But I'm not so sure. Okay, so in terms of reserves. So what are we talking about? Let me go back to that earlier slide that man asked before. So we're going to try to figure out of this green, you know, this over almost $1.2 billion, how much are what we would call reserves that give the administration financial freedom and flexibility. The problem is with these unrestricted, with these net assets, there are all these different categories. And so there's basically 4 different boxes. And these are, people give money to the university, you can never spend the principal. People give money to the university, you can spend the principal once my daughter graduates, you can spend that money after 20 years, you can spend the money only if this happens. And then you have unrestricted. Well, a lot of the unrestricted are tied up in the buildings. And so a lot of these, once the debt's paid off, it's pure profit for them in terms of the building if they're going to sell it. But how can a university sell a building? They sold the building, then
We just sold a couple of them.
well, then we don't have to teach them. I assume you have classes. There are classes. There are some. Is everything online? We're not getting into that debate. You guys have had that debate here, I got a feeling. And it happens everywhere. And so we try to figure out what's independent properties. So here's just words, it just describes it all. And so this is what I come up. Going through all that math, I come up with about $250 million of freedom and flexibility. And so what we do is, what I'm trying to do is operationalize. So what is $250 million? What is that? Is that good? Is that bad? Is that a lot of reserves? So we have these ratios to try to say, how is the university performing? And we're using 4 ratios. Now, where did we come up with these 4 ratios? It all started in the great state of Ohio. About 15, 18 years ago, 2 of the institutions in Ohio went under. So the legislature, and our public institutions, the legislature in Ohio hired Moody's to come up with a series of ratios, and they came up with them. And since that time, various other groups and entities have tweaked it. One of the people who have tweaked it, myself and Rudy Fichter, now president, we've come up with our system. KPMG, the auditor, who happened to be the auditor for Fordham, they have a system. Various other entities that look at this stuff, they all have, but they're all basically plays on these ratios. And so the ratios are, what are your reserves compared to your expenses? In other words, if you have 50% reserves, that means you have 6 months of expenses in reserves. How big is your savings account? That's what it's trying to say. How big is it? And what's really big, if you've got 6 months of reserves, you're doing well. Anything less than 1 month, not so good. Do you have a lot of debt? What about revenues versus expenses? And what about cash flows? What's the difference between these two here, without getting into accounting? You've all heard accrual accounting, you've all heard that, whether you're accounting or accrual accounting versus cash. That's really the difference. We look at things on an accrual basis where we count all the expenses, whether we pay for them in cash or not. And cash, we just look at cash in, cash in. One's not better than the other, they both matter, and together, we put these together and tell a story. We're trying to tell a story. How are they doing? How are they performing? And so, this is the primary reserve ratio. So they got $251 million in reserves, about $500 million operation. See, Fordham right now is running about $500 million in operating expenses a year. And you can see 50% is really good. So it dipped here, and things are now looking pretty good. So 48% means Fordham has almost 6 months of reserves, which is outstanding. So that's good. On the other hand, the next ratio, debt. Even though the ratio itself, reserves compared to debt, is high, a 55% debt ratio is considered not so great. Why? This university has borrowed a lot of money. Now, what did they borrow the money for? My guess is they borrowed the money not to be operated, but they borrowed the money to finance buildings. What's the other way you build buildings? Instead of borrowing, you raise it. Well, they have a fundraising arm here. They pay a lot of money for it. Obviously, it's not doing the job, or they wouldn't be borrowing all this money. And so, you can see, there is now $460 million of debt here. Is that a lot? For an organization with operating expenses of $500 million, that's a lot of debt. But it funded this building. And in defense of the administration, I don't think it's cheap to build a place. Whether it be in Manhattan, or Westchester, or here in the Bronx. It's not cheap. So, that'd be the excuse, but it'd be nice. So you can see, you got 2 ratios, one very good, one not so good. Then we have operating income, and let me talk, and the cash flow. This is what really matters the most on the operating cash flow. This is all the cash in from tuition, all the cash in from people who don't pay tuition, but you get loan money. all the cash in from your grants and your contracts. Less paying everybody, paying everyone who works here, paying all the consultants, paying for the supplies, paying for electricity. All the cash in versus all the cash out. And when all said and done, you can see what they're generating every year, 30, 35, 33, 69, 22, 34, 62. They're generating $30 million, $40 million in excess cash flows each and every year. And that's good. And as a percentage of revenue, anything bigger than 5%. So this to me is pretty important when we talk about overall health. We give scores to these things based on how big they are, and the bottom line is here, the composite score is out of 5. So what do I mean by that? A viability ratio of 55% gives you only a 2.0. A primary reserve ratio of 48%, that's really good. That gives you a 4. And so you can see the scores here, 4, and things look really bad in the market down there. And we'll see some pretty decent scores overall, and this is what it looks like graphically. A perfect score is 5, trouble is 1.5, solid is here, very good is here. So you see, you take it, it's a story, remember telling a story. So strong reserves compared to operations, but a lot of debt. Pretty good cash flow performance, though it's been a little up and down, but generally pretty good. You put it all together, you stir it up, and this is what you get. But don't believe me, believe the bond rating. The bond rating is an external party, and Moody's and Standard & Poor's, they both give, in essence, the same rating to Fordham. They look at all this and they say, this is what we think you are. And so it's the 6th highest rating out of 22 categories, and this is a pretty recent rating. The Moody's rating was March 23rd, 16. And this is what they said. Again, all this, none of this is any of my words. This is everything in the bond. Very good market position for prominent Jesuit institution. Someone mentioned before, you see they use the Jesuit thing they use when they have to use it. Right? And so, you know, in their bond stuff, they really use it. But that's, you told me that. That's exactly right. So, you know, look, I read a lot of Moody's reports. I don't see, you know, I think I know the Jesuit. You don't see the Jesuit thing very often. But highlighting here, I think it's great. Consistent, modest growth in net tuition revenue, strong fundraising capital investment operations. Challenges, fading operating margins, high leverage debt, heavy dependence on student charge revenue and payment margins. So then they give a stable outlook based on operating margins. Liquidity is cash at or above current levels. Modest tuition growth in the average philanthropy will continue with that debt will not increase. So they're basically saying, keep doing what you're doing, just don't borrow any more money. You borrowed enough. And keep doing what you're doing, and we think you're good. So what I did here was here are the buy ratings of the peers. Now, I got these peers. Fordham's website says these are your peers, and they have a list of aspirant peers here. And Syracuse, you know, we all know what Syracuse is. Us New Yorkers, you know, people when you live in the Midwest, like I do for so long, people think Syracuse, like Ithaca and New York City are the same thing. We all know they're different countries. And those of us who grew up here know that that's just not the same thing. But anyway, so you can see Fordham, not, you know, pretty much in line with the others. The aspirant peers, Northwestern and Notre Dame have better bond ratings than the U.S. government. Some of the larger privates, Stanford, University of Chicago, they print money. And they cry poverty at the same time. And they challenge their graduate students and their adjuncts when they talk about unionization when they're printing money. And Fordham, you know, they have the money here. I think you take this all together, they have resources. They're not swimming in it, but they certainly generate significant cash. They have a solid level of reserves. Debt's a little high, but you put it all together, they're in solid financial shape. That's what this is about. And I don't think they would argue differently. Because believe me, this is what they tell Moody's. They tell Moody's how great they are. But even if you gave them truth serum, them being the administration, I hate to say this, and I'm on tape, so here we go. I do see the world as them and us. I'm sorry about that, but we are us and they are them. So, and I know some people move back and forth administration. It may surprise you that I've never been asked to be an administrator. I'm shocked. Now look, I've only been teaching for 26 years, so it could change. But right now, hasn't happened. So, but you see, these are the private university ratings. So I just gave you the comparables. This is all the privates, and you can see there is definitely a shakeout in the private university market that's coming. A lot of the small privates, Fordham is not small, given the enrollment down, Fordham is definitely not small. It's definitely one of the larger ones. There is definitely going to be some shakeout. When I mean shakeout, I think there's going to be some closings in private institutions. And Fordham and others who are well ahead of that financially still get nervous about that, and I think they use that. But you can see, if I showed you the public, I should put it up here. If I showed you this slide for the public, it's at least 1 or even 1.5 standard deviations to the left. And the reason is publics have another revenue source and another backstop that privates don't. It's the state. Not just for the annual appropriation, but in most cases for the pension plan. That's not the case in private institutions for the most part. So you can see Fordham's 8.2 is about in line with those private institutions. So let's look at this revenue. So someone mentioned to me that we were told yesterday or last week that 90% of our revenue is tuition. When administrations give you financial information, they're not giving you audited statements. They're giving you budgets where, yeah, 92%, but what's the denominator? Whatever they want to include in the denominator. This is everything. This is all the revenues. But you can see, the way I would frame it is this. 72% is tuition and fees. These auxiliaries, housing, dining, student union, bookstore, I hate to say it, athletics. I was told people don't really go to athletic events here or pay for them, but they would be in there. But in general, those auxiliaries are tied to tuition. You're not going to have those revenues unless people are going to school here. So I think it's fair to say that that 85% of the revenues are direct. And that is high, even for a private university this size. What do most of the universities have? They tend to have some investment gains that are larger. The endowments tend to be a little larger with more investment income. But yes,
The 92 included auxiliaries, so it compares to your 85.
yeah, it's in the ballpark.
Also, could I ask, in a previous Moody's report, a warning flag was raised about the degree that we were invested in auxiliaries. That wasn't in this report.
It was not. It was not. I mean, I didn't hide the rest
That at all, or we?
It's a good question. You know, let me say it's an interesting point, because when I looked at auxiliaries, what I usually find is that the revenues are bigger than the expenses. That means they gouge the students on housing and dining. But here that's not the case. And it could be because athletics is just a cost here. It's not generating, I mean, I love sports, you can tell I love sports, but I don't think sports is generating a big amount of income here. Am I wrong? Do people pay to go to the games here?
Yeah.
But, and how many of you guys are regular attendees?
Given the salary of our basketball coach, we don't make much money.
So, but I think the point is well taken, because I did notice that auxiliaries would not generate a surplus. Because at most places, they gouge the students. What I mean by that, when you do at my place and others, we did this study at Cal State LA, we did it at my place in Eastern Michigan. The same Starbucks on campus is more expensive than the closest Starbucks that's on campus to the campus by about 12%, which may not sound like a lot, but Starbucks is gouging our students. Shocking. I mean, I'm sure that's shocking. And these are campuses with first-generation students, a lot of Lincoln students, Cal State LA, Eastern Michigan. And so I usually find that they gouge them not just with food, but with housing and dining. So, but here I didn't find that. So that's probably why that note appeared, because there's not an auxiliary profit. Like, auxiliaries usually generate a profit to help subsidize tuition grants. We'll look at the grant for tuition and stuff like that. So, yes, young lady.
I don't know if this is important, but is the fact that they're not gouging on auxiliaries, that the cost of those auxiliaries in New York is so much higher?
Yes.
And therefore they can't set the price too high?
Exactly right. I think there's absolutely something. That's got to be the case. I mean, looking at other places, but even in Adelphi, which I don't think is that far from here, I think they have more residents there percentage-wise. They probably have more residential students as a percentage of the students. Do all the kids live on campus here? No. 2/3 do? For 2 years, or they have to? For 4? Do they have to live here as first-year students? No. No, that's right. Okay. So this is the revenue over time. And you can see just here, this is in millions, tuition revenue every year is going up. We'll look at the discount issue. We'll look at the discount issue for sure. But you can see the dominant revenue source is going up every year. And so this is the percentage distribution. It's very stable all the time. It's very stable, very heavily reliant. You know, here's at 72 and 13, and you can see in other years, it's almost identical. So, digging in, because tuition is so important, I dug into the enrollment reports. Now, there's a lot of different sources you can use. There's a fact book here, and I relied on that. There's also a bond report with enrollment data. There's also IPEDS, which I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, stands for Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. A good thing about IPEDS is they can't mess around with that stuff. Theoretically, they can't. And so they have to tell the truth. And so I use that for a lot of stuff. So I think what you see here, I mean, if I just highlight the yellow, in general, we've seen an increase in enrollment. And very different from other places. Again, I try to do a lot of peer stuff, and the young man very early in the presentation asked about other institutions. What's different here is most other institutions do not have the level of graduate students, the number of graduate students that are here compared to us. This is much heavier on grad students. I've been a grad student here, I guess. I'm fine with that, but certainly certainly that's a difference. So, and these are the percentage changes. And numbers, let's look at the graphs. Don't you guys like graphs better than numbers? Yeah, graphs better. So this is undergrad. These are annual percentage changes each year for the last 8 years. So you can see in general, over 1 to 2 years, undergrad is going up. There's a big increase in grad, but a lot of that they actually changed the way they counted. They weren't counting part-time people before. So I would discount these two. So in general, the last couple of years, we've definitely seen a decline in graduate student enrollment. I am not looking at the individual colleges, although that data certainly exists. My view on this, if you start fighting among each other, oh, my college is the cash cow, and you're the one draining us, you are all in this together. And Fordham is one large, comprehensive university. People take classes that count. I mean, they take classes in this area because they have to. It's one university. And if they get you arguing with each other, everything we teach, we think is the greatest and most important subject of this, right? Just, you know it. You know everything you teach is the greatest and the best. You know it is because you do it. But keep that in mind. In general, the trends have been up, but certainly a difference between undergrad and grad. Now, is that pricing? Is that emphasis? Is that outside markets? A lot of those things. Yes to probably all of them. But so what I have here are the changes in the enrollments for the peer institutions in total enrollment from 10 to 15, and then just in the 1 year from 14 to 15. So Fordham is the red and the black outline. So you can see these are percentage change. You can see from 10, the numbers are going to be bigger over a 5. This is a 5-year change, right? From 10 to 15. This is a 1-year change. You guys with me on these? With me? Pass it. Yeah. This slide's on the test. All right. Notice how Syracuse have their color orange and blue. I hate Jim data. Sorry. My brother went to Georgetown, so he went to the same year. You Pat Ewing, you guys don't remember Pat Ewing. Remember him? Oh, yeah. Remember Pat Ewing? Remember Big East? Remember all that? Is there a Big East anymore? Yeah.
Yes.
But not the same.
Catholic.
Okay. Is Fordham in it?
Separate buckets.
Is Fordham the American East? Is that the conference?
No, they're 8-10.
8-10. That's kind of, okay.
Yeah.
So, you can see here, middle of the pack a little better, same thing in the short chain. So, I think that's good compared to here. I found this interesting. The Chronicle, this was done last week, but of 2000, they did this snapshot report. This came, if you look at the Chronicle, this came out last week. They looked at the racial breakdown of the students. And I'll just let you guys look at it. And I put down here, this CUNY is an AAUP place. And we have, these guys are in the Bronx. I know Columbia's not in the Bronx. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. and you've never gotten to the city and state. I think you feel good about this versus your peers, but the levels are not where they need to be. They're just not. And yes, I'm bragging, we're an institution with double the minority enrollment that you guys have here, but we're also serving we're a public school. But still, I found these numbers alarming, uncomfortable, and I'm sorry, but I think it's worth noting. And if you're uncomfortable about it, as I am, then let's try to do something about it. And the aspirant peers, and just watch a college football game on Saturday. We live in Ann Arbor. I plead guilty to living in Ann Arbor. So I teach in Ypsilanti. You know your Michigan geography. You know how close they are to each other. Look at the stands of the University of Michigan game. The kids are all white. You look at the stands at the Eastern Michigan game. You don't see anyone because no one goes. So there's nothing to see. And we were, our big push at my university, our chapter, our union, we're fighting to get us out of Division I football. That's our big push. We think they're throwing money away. I don't see it as much here because you don't play Division I football. Though basketball, there is a significant amount of money. But this is pretty, I know I see a lot of you looking. As a teacher, I see a lot of you guys whispering and looking, and so you find it interesting as well. All right, this is Fordham itself, just Fordham acceptances and applications. That's a mistake. I'm missing two. The applications, this does not mean there's been a doubling of interest in Fordham. It's just easier and cheaper to apply. Everyone has double the application. What matters is this purplish thing. And this doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, because I think kids have more choices, and they get into more places. They get into more places than they used to. So, let's cut off there. This is the SAT scores of the entry freshman. I don't know if they're true or not. You guys, I'm sure people see these numbers here. They look, one of us old faculty always said, oh, the kids today, the kids today. You know what, let me admit this, I'm not just saying, I actually think our students today are better than they've ever been. I think my students, I speak for myself, I think these kids are more engaged, smarter, work harder than I did, but maybe I'm wrong. Back in the old days when we went to school, walking uphill both ways, all that kind of stuff. I don't know, I'm not so sure that's true. I don't think I believe that. I'll say this, the students today work a lot more, they work a lot more hours than we did. We all work, but not like this. I'm sure you have the same thing here. So, and they have other pressures that we didn't have. A lot of them have family pressure. So, I don't think the kids I think they're just as hardworking, just as dedicated, if not more so. And I don't know what this tells me. But, all right, tuition and fees. Tuition's going up. I just that's the sticker price. You guys knew that? It says 60, that's a 6 and a 5. It costs $50,000 then, it costs $60,000 a year. I don't know what to tell you. So, this is me getting fancy with Excel. I have dollars on this side and percent on this side. You like that? Yeah. So, isn't that nice? It takes not that long to do. And different colors, it doesn't take long to do. I have honestly a lot of time on my hands. So this is the level, and these are the percentage things. I'll say this, again, I'm looking at peers in I'll look at peers in a second. This is what we've seen in the public sector. And you guys, even though I understand it's a private school, but we're all in the market of education. In the public sector, this pinkish line is definitely low. Because legislatures have said, we're not going to give you unless you keep it there. Private sector, there's no such restriction other than each other. And that's what people are afraid of in this whole university private sector, that there's such competition. A small private school with 3,000 undergraduate students sweats losing 10 students. And so for them, it really makes a difference. And they have to, but Fordham has to watch also. So let's look at the peers. So this is Fordham's 15, 16 tuition versus peers. This is just tuition and fees. And undergraduate required tuition and fees. That's what that is. And they're all high. And so here, this next one is, these are the longer term and single year percentage changes in tuition. So you see a little bigger. But you can see even in this last year. And by the way, the 16 to 17 increase, I think I have that on the slide, on the number slide. Yeah, we have, this is the tuition for 17, so we have a 17 number the year over now. So you can see that's a tuition and fee increase of 3.7, the same percent increase it was last year. And almost the same, you can see it's something the same for the last 3 years. And that's here at Fordham. So this here is 15 to 16 for the peers, and this is a longer term change for the peers. You can see Fordham that high. Discount. Now, these discount rates are off of the sticker price. The word sticker price is a difficult word, obviously, but it's a word that is used in academia. People use it all the time. So that's what the top is, then the financial aid, then the net to aid. So this is what goes on these. This is the income that's collected. And here's the discount rate. How do I get the discount rate? The discount rate is an aid. Here's my numerator, and here's my gross denominator. So 162 over 570 is 28.5. Now, you can see it didn't move very much up until this last year. A point is a big difference, right? Because we're talking about a point of $500 million. Right? 1% of that's $5 million. So 1 point in discount is $5 million of additional aid. That's the way to think. I mean, give or take, that's the way to think of it. And over this period, over each 16 period, you see gross tuition go up by 4 million, but aid increased by more. So there has been an increase. I think the administration may have different ideas on what a discount rate is, but this is what's in their bond report, this is what's in their audit statements. So I think it's. And I say here, with a 1% increase in the rate, is about $373 a student. So for every student, $373, a lot of money. A lot of money.
Can you clarify, is that only undergraduate or is that undergraduate and graduate?
This is both. And that's a good point because here, you know there's a big difference in the aid at the undergrad level versus the grad level. And the aid is less at the grad level.
Let me just add on that this is across the entire student population,
yes.
Whereas the freshman numbers have gone up very dramatically over the last period of time. So
in
the
terms of the
money that the discount for the freshmen is 40%.
46, 47%.
45%.
You know, let me say this about those numbers that they give you. I don't believe it. I'll be honest with you. I don't believe them. Their budgeted numbers, I want to know if it's this over that. And I would like to see that. I would like to see if that's the case. I don't think it could be that high. I mean, that sounds really high. But that means they're sticking it to them once they get here.
That's correct. That's
If
exactly
they really
right.
do that, they turn around and stick it to them in years 3 and 4.
Then they don't get any more dollar amount than the additional years.
That's hard.
So,
So once they know they're going to stay, they got them when they need them.
Could you explain why on IPEDS, on its IPEDS reports, Fordham does not actually give internal scholarship?
They do. This number is an IPEDS.
It's an IPEDS number, but from what, kind of from what?
It's in the revenue stream. I can show it. It is allowance. It is what they call an allowance for.
Because there's an internal scholarships, category that we don't report.
Yeah, and in fact, in the bond report, to follow up on your point, there are some additional number of scholarships, something about 7 or 8 million on top of this. That's not an IPEDS. That's who knows what it's for. But these numbers correspond to IPEDS. They're both in the audited statements and in IPEDS. Both. So here are the discount rates of peers. And I use 2014, that's the last year we have full data. So here's Fordham at 26.9, that's this 26.9. And the reason I use the 28.5 is we don't have this data for the others yet. So that's why. So, okay, this comes directly. So this, you put it all together. By the way, we're more than halfway done. Isn't that good? So this is it's like again, like a stew. You throw the enrollment change in there, that's the red. You show the lime green is the tuition price. And then you mix them together, and as you said, as pointed out, you have differences in colleges and student composition, which change things. The dark green is what they bring home in revenue. I don't have a dark green bar here. The audited financial statements, that's the first thing I would look at. I want to see this numbers here. For the tuition number, the net tuition revenue is for 16. And then I'll be able to have it. So I'll be able to know what that is. I'm not going to know this for a while. Enrollment, someone probably here knows in all 16 enrollment. It's just not public service. You guys, I mean, internally you may know it, but us outsiders. So let's look at where the money's going. So here's the $569 million hasn't spent. Less than half on instruction, which always surprises people. But that's, and we'll compare this, and I'm going to rely on you again, just because it's low everywhere, doesn't make it right. But yet, as you'll see, the Fordham numbers are not all that different. And I'm not meaning to say, when I keep saying, I'm not meaning to say you're average or anything like that. I'm saying the trends and the numbers we see at Fordham are very, it's not an outlier. And that probably doesn't make you feel, it should make you feel like great. But that's the way it is.
How does the research number compare?
Research is lower here. Research is very low. So I define, just there's one thing I, yes?
Can you go back to the last slide and could you tell